Hi, welcome to the Cool Tools Studios. I'm Mardell Ryan. Today I'm going to show you how to create custom texture sheets using polymer clay. This is one of my favorite times of the year because everything in my garden is blooming, and I'd like to capture some of that beauty in my metal clay work. I've picked a piece of dill from my garden, and I'm going to show you how I can create a custom texture sheet using polymer clay, and then we'll make a very simple, very elegant pendant project with that texture. So let's get started. I start by softening a 1 ounce package of polymer clay. This is Sculpey 3, and make a little patty out of it and then roll it flat. And I'll break off pieces of the dill and arrange them on the sheet. And once I have those the way that I like them, I take a piece of plexiglass, this is a snake roller, and press it firmly on the sheet so that the pieces of dill are embedded. Then I can bake this in the oven at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes. Then after the piece is cooled, I need to remove the dill. This will be dried from the oven, and I just pick it out as best I can and then use my fingers to sort of brush away as much as I can get out. To get out these little pieces that are stuck, I soak the entire texture in a little dish of water for a few minutes, and then I can use my curved tweezers to pick out the little bits that remain. Now I'm going to condition my bronze clay. I'm doing this piece in bronze clay, but you could use any kind of clay. I make it into a little patty and butter one side with slick and then knead that in to make sure I knead it in really well. Roll it into a ball and then form it into the rough shape that I want, which is in this case going to be a long rectangle. So I'll just press that into place. And I'm using the number 6 clay thickness rolling frame, and I'll just roll this piece out. Make sure that I've got enough to pick up the texture that I want. And then I'm going to spritz my texture with Cool Slip to make sure that it doesn't stick to the clay. That's very important. And then place the slab on the texture, and I'll use my roller to just gently roll the clay into the texture so I can pick up this beautiful texture that I've got here. And then I'm going to place this on a tough card so that I can work on it further. I'm going to cut this shape out with the flexible tissue blade. I put a little bit of slick on it, and then I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and get a nice rectangular shape. And once I have that trimmed out, I'll use my ball burnisher to mark a spot where I want to drill after the clay is dried. I don't want to go all the way through now, this is just to mark. And then I can set that piece to dry. Another way to make the shape is by using one of our jewelry shape templates. I can find the spot that I like on the clay, and then rather than cutting it out, I press it into the clay so that I get an impression of where I want to cut. And I cut around this roughly and then allow that to dry and then sand the edges down to the impression. Once the pieces are dry, I can clean up the edges. Here I'm using a 3M sponge sanding pad. This is a fine grit, and I'm just going to go around all the edges, make sure they're nice and square, and then I can go ahead and drill my holes. Then I want to give it a final dusting and check it over and make sure it's just the way I want it before I fire it. After firing, I have a number of different finishing options. Here I'm using a brass brush to remove the firing residue, and then I follow that up with an ultra polish pad to polish up the high spots. Another way to finish this piece is to use a satin finishing wheel and a coarse grit in my Fordham. I can go over the piece very, very quickly, and it does a good job of removing just the amount of oxidation that I'd like so that I have that nice antique finish. Here's another option for bronze clay. On this piece I've cleaned it up completely, so I've removed all of the patina, and I'm going to place it in my annealing pan and heat it up with my micro torch. This is going to give me some nice golden colors, so watch as the colors start to develop on this piece. You'll find that as you heat it up, the colors will begin to develop very slowly, but as soon as you see them, you need to remove the torch because the colors develop as it cools. For this piece, I want to polish just the high spots on this and leave the beautiful color in the background. So I don't want to use the satin finishing wheel. That would remove too much of the patina. I'm using a Superflex polisher and a fine grit, and this is a barrel shape. So the barrel shape runs over just the high areas and it doesn't get down into the nooks and crannies, which is exactly what I want. So now I need to create a jump ring for the chain. I'm going to use 16 gauge bronze wire for this. And the end is a little bent on this, so I'm going to straighten that up with my parallel pliers and then nip the end off flush with my flush cut nippers. And then I use a blue sanding disc to square up the end of the wire. I use my round nose pliers to form a jump ring. This is an easy way to form jump rings one at a time. Then I'm going to square up the other end of the wire using the blue sanding disc. I've got a selection of vintage chains here, and I just want to look at them and see how each one of them would work with this pendant. This is the one that I think I'm going to go with. It's got nice rectangular shaped links that are reminiscent of the rectangular shape of the pendant, so I think that works really well. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this, and then my pendant will be complete. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project. Be sure to visit us online at www.cooltools.us. Visit our Learning Center and you can download a PDF file that contains complete step-by-step instructions plus a list of the supplies that you'll need to create this project.